You think embarrassment is something you feel, a thought, a little mental sting. Then your face turns red. Fine, but why does your body react before you can think? Why does your skin change color before you decide what it means? Why do your cheeks betray you without permission? Most people don't ask. They say things like embarrassment or stress response. They repeat words, but that's not an answer. When you really ask why, you find something that changes how you see your own body, not as something that reacts to emotion, but as the thing generating it. Let me show you. Start with something simple. You're in a room, you're talking, everything is normal, and then you do one small thing wrong. You call someone the wrong name. You wave at someone who wasn't waving at you. There's a pause, a tiny one, barely a beat, and then it happens. In less than 2 seconds, your face changes. Sometimes in under a second. Heat rises into your cheeks. Your ears get hot. Your neck warms. Your skin brightens like a hidden light turned on beneath it. You didn't choose it. You didn't authorize it. You didn't even see it coming. And what's really strange is the order. First, your body changes. Then, your mind shows up with the story. Embarrassment. The feeling is late. That's why the experience has a distinctive time lag. First, there's a body event. Then there's a sensation. Then there's a story. You can feel the delay if you pay attention. The warmth arrives. And only after that does the thought arrive, oh no, the brain is a narrator. It explains state shifts after they start, so the mind feels like the cause. Because the mind is the part that speaks, but the body is the part that moves. That's why embarrassment feels like a trap. By the time you notice it, the signal is already on your face. The system already spoke for you. So the real question is not, why do we blush? The question is, what's between embarrassment and blushing? Because there is a step in the middle, a mechanical step that most people never see. And once you see it, the whole thing flips. Embarrassment isn't the cause, it's the label. The body moves first, the mind names it later. Now here's the key. Blushing is not a thought, it's not a feeling, it's not a mood, it's plumbing. It's blood vessels doing something specific in a very specific place on a clock you do not control. So let's strip it down. What is blushing physically? Blushing is blood vessels near the surface of your skin opening wider. That's it. Tiny vessels in your cheeks, ears, neck dilate. More blood moves through them, closer to the surface, so your skin looks redder. And you feel warmth, because warm blood is moving outward. Imagine a dimmer switch, turn it down. Your face looks pale and cool. Turn it up, your face looks red and hot. That is the entire phenomenon. No symbolism required. And one detail matters more than all the rest. You cannot do this on command. Try it. Right now, decide to blush, choose it. Nothing happens because these vessels aren't controlled like your hand. You can lift your hand, you can choose your words, you can hold your face still, but you cannot manually open the vascular gates in your cheeks. That control lives somewhere else. Underneath the part of you that narrates your life, there is a control system that runs the body. Not occasionally, constantly. It adjusts you the way a thermostat adjusts a room. Automatically, continuously, without asking. That system has a name, the autonomic nervous system. It's the network that handles regulation, breathing rhythm, heart rate, sweat, pupil size, digestion, muscle tone, temperature control. It changes your body state before you can form an explanation. And it is always deciding the same basic question, what should the body do next? Not as philosophy, as logistics, how much energy should be available, how fast should blood move? Should heat be conserved or dumped? Should muscles be tight or loose? Should attention be wide or narrow? These are mechanical decisions, and they happen fast, so when blushing happens, It isn't your mind losing control. Your mind was never the control lever. Blushing is the autonomic system issuing a command, a vascular command. And that raises the next question: what would ever make a nervous system open blood vessels in your face right when you want to be invisible? Because embarrassment feels like threat, not threat like falling, not threat like fire, not threat like pain, a different category, a social category, a threat that exists only because you live among other humans. Your nervous system tracks physical danger, but it also tracks consequences. It reacts to changes that predict consequences. And one of the strongest consequence signals in your environment is this: other people are watching you. Other people are evaluating you. Other people can change how they treat you. That's not a thought, that's a variable. The group can grant access. The group can withdraw access. The group can punish. The group can protect. So your brain has circuits that treat social exposure as an event that matters. Not morally, mechanically. You can feel this in your body because the system is built to move your body. A social error happens. A tone lands wrong. A pause appears. A face shifts. A micro-expression flashes. And your nervous system does something before your language brain can comment on it. It detects mismatch. A moment ago, the predicted state was smooth interaction. Then the incoming signals say something changed. That mismatch triggers autonomic activation. Heart rate shifts. Breathing changes, muscle tone tightens, sweat glands prepare, and in many people, facial vessels dilate. That's blushing. And then your conscious mind arrives and labels the state. Embarrassment. So what is embarrassment? Not a ghost in your head, not a mood floating around. Embarrassment is a name for a body sequence that starts with detection. Detection of exposure. Detection of evaluation, detection that you have been seen in a way you didn't intend. Now, but wait, if the system detects threat, why would it make you more visible? Why would it brighten your face? Why would it add heat and color to the exact place people look? This is where it gets strange, because blushing is not designed to hide you, it's designed to communicate, but not the way your words communicate. Blushing is communication without choice, and that's the reason it works. You can fake words, you can fake confidence, you can fake calm, you can hold a neutral expression and perform control, but you cannot fake capillaries. You cannot decide when to flush, you cannot reliably switch it on and off, you cannot use it like a prop. And that makes it credible. The redness costs you control, so the group can treat it as honest information. Blushing says something specific. Even if you never say anything, it says, I know. It says, I registered the exposure. It says, I'm not pretending it didn't happen. It's a visible acknowledgement signal. And because it's involuntary, it cannot be easily forged. That is its entire power. So blushing isn't the symptom of embarrassment. Blushing is one of the mechanisms that produces it. Your body runs the signal. Then your mind experiences the consequence. Then your mind names the experience. Embarrassment, that's the order flip. Body first, story second. Now here's the part people miss. Blushing isn't happening in your skin, it's happening in the pipes underneath it. Your skin is just the screen. The message is written in blood flow. And blood flow is controlled like a valve system. At any moment, your body is deciding where blood should go. Not because of emotion, because of physics. You only have so much blood volume. You only have so much pressure. And every organ is competing. Your muscles want blood when you move. Your stomach wants blood when you digest. Your brain wants blood all the time. Your skin wants blood when you need to dump heat. So the circulatory system is a distribution problem. The heart is the pump. But the pump is not the main control knob. The main control knob is diameter. And this is where the numbers get brutal. Flow through a vessel doesn't scale linearly with diameter. It scales with the radius to the fourth power. Fourth power, that means if a vessel's radius increases by just 10%, blood flow can jump by almost 50%, because 1.1 to the fourth is about 1.46. A tiny widening becomes a huge surge. Double the radius. And flow isn't doubled, it's multiplied by 16. 2 to the fourth. 16. So when the autonomic system relaxes smooth muscle and facial arterioles, it's not letting a little more blood through. It's opening a gate that changes the entire local pressure landscape. More flow arrives. More warm blood sits near the surface. And the screen lights up. That's why blushing looks dramatic, even though the command is small. The command isn't huge, the physics is. And once you understand that, the whole phenomenon stops looking mysterious. It's not a mood, it's not your personality leaking out, it's a control system nudging diameter and a fourth power law doing the rest. So opening them wider is like opening floodgates. That's what dilation is. The walls relax, the opening widens, flow increases, and the opposite is constriction. The walls tighten. The opening narrows, flow drops. The smooth muscle wrapped around small arteries and arterioles is doing this constantly, not consciously, automatically. It's the same kind of muscle that controls your gut, the same kind that controls the size of your pupils. Smooth muscle doesn't wait for your plan. It responds to commands, and those commands arrive through two routes: electrical signals through autonomic nerves and chemical signals in the blood. So when blushing happens, it isn't a feeling leaking out, it's a command that changes vessel tone. And when vessel tone changes in the face, it's obvious because the face is thin. There isn't much between blood and the outside world. A little tissue, a little collagen, a little pigment. So when blood moves closer, you can see it. That's why blushing doesn't look like a deep internal change. It looks like something spilling out onto the surface, but nothing spilled, nothing escaped. It's just a redistribution, a rerouting of flow. Now, why would the system reroute blood to the face? There are two practical reasons. One is heat. The face is a radiator. A heat exchanger, it's packed with vessels near the surface, and it's often uncovered. No thick clothing, no insulation. If your body needs to dump heat fast, the face is efficient. Warm blood goes outward, heat moves into the air, temperature drops. That's basic thermodynamics. And the second reason is visibility. The face is also a display, a social billboard. It's the part everyone looks at because it contains eyes. And eyes are prediction machines. Humans read faces because faces carry state, where attention is, what's safe, what's tense, what's unpredictable, what's going to happen next. So the face is the one region where physiology becomes information, which means the same hardware can serve two roles: temperature regulation and communication. And blushing is what happens when the communication role wins. Now, here's another odd detail. Most of the time, the ramp-up branch of the autonomic system does the opposite of blushing. When your body prepares for action, it often constricts blood vessels in the skin, because skin isn't essential for immediate action. If you were about to run, you'd want blood and muscles, not at the surface, not wasted on heat loss. So ramping up often looks like cool hands, cool skin, paler face. That's why people sometimes look drained under intense stress. And there's a reason this particular pattern feels so personal, because blushing is a mismatch between what you can control and what you can't. You can lock your face into a neutral expression. You can keep your voice steady. You can hold still. You can act like nothing happened. Those are voluntary displays. But underneath the display layer, the autonomic layer is updating anyway. It's shifting blood flow, heat, and sweat. So you get two signals at once. The top layer says, I'm fine. The deeper layer says, I'm exposed. That conflict is what you experience as embarrassment. It's not just attention from other people, it's your own body producing evidence you didn't authorize. And that evidence is hard to ignore because it's public, it's on the surface. A blush turns private state into visible state. It converts internal regulation into external information. That is why it has such force in social life, because most social control depends on managing what others can detect. You can hide uncertainty with words. You can hide tension with posture. You can hide anger with a smile. But you can't reliably hide a vascular output. It isn't a muscle you can tense. It isn't a sentence you can rewrite. Once it starts, it's already data in the room, and the room reacts to data. Not consciously, mechanically, eyes lock, attention tightens. Other nervous systems update their predictions about you. That update feeds back into yours, because when attention narrows on you, it increases exposure. And increased exposure strengthens the same circuit that started the blush. So the blush isn't just a signal, it's a signal that changes the environment, and the changed environment pushes the signal harder. That's why it can feel like the heat keeps rising. The system is reading the room, reacting to the output, and treating that reaction as confirmation. Confirmation means stay in this state. Keep broadcasting acknowledgement, keep the display on until the probability of escalation drops. So why does embarrassment do this strange reverse thing where it pushes blood into the surface? Why does it heat the face? But wait, if the same system can make you pale and also make you flush, then blushing can't be just arousal. It's a specific pattern, a very specific output. So the better question becomes, what exact pattern is being triggered and what does the pattern accomplish? Here's the clue. Blushing is local, not whole body. It concentrates in the face and upper chest. And that implies it's not just energy mobilization, it's state display. The system isn't only preparing you to act, it's preparing the group to respond. It's not just about your muscles, it's about other nervous systems. Because in social life, other people are part of the environment. Their reactions change outcomes. So blushing is not only an internal adjustment, it's a broadcast, a way of updating the room, a way of saying, I'm not ignoring what happened. Now notice what that does. It changes the probability of what comes next. If you make a mistake and stay stone-faced, the group has to guess. Are you unaware? Are you defiant? Are you indifferent? Uncertainty raises friction. A visible blush collapses uncertainty. It says, I detected it. That can reduce escalation. It can shorten the interaction. It can stop the correction from becoming a fight. It can function as a social break. Not because anyone is consciously polite, because their nervous systems are responding to signals too. That's what makes this so mechanical. Your blush changes their state changes yours. The room stabilizes. Now, you might ask, if awareness is late, what is early? Early is detection without language. It's pattern recognition. Your nervous system is scanning for signals that predict how the group will treat you. And it's doing that all the time, even when you think you're relaxed, even when you think you're just being yourself, because being yourself is still happening inside a group. And groups carry consequences. So you have a system that runs before conscious thought, preparing the body for social outcomes. Sometimes that preparation looks like tightness in the chest, a drop in the stomach, a small freeze, a heat flush to the face, and then you call it a feeling. Now, but wait, if this is a circuit, why does it sometimes fire when nothing bad happened? Why do some people blush when they're complimented, when attention lands on them, when their name gets said in a room? That's not punishment, that's spotlight. So why would the same mechanism show up? Because the circuit isn't tracking good or bad, it's tracking visibility. Praise increases attention, Attention increases evaluation, evaluation increases consequences. So the same category gets activated: public exposure. The system treats that as a state shift, not because it's painful, because it's public. A compliment is a spotlight. A spotlight is exposure. Exposure is consequence. So blood moves outward, the face changes, the body broadcasts, and the feeling you call embarrassment can appear without error because the trigger isn't error, it's being seen. Now, here's where the feeling actually comes from. Your brain doesn't have a direct readout that says social evaluation detected. What it has is internal data: temperature rising in the face, a subtle pressure change, a breath shift, a tiny change in heart rhythm. This is internal sensing, the body reporting its own outputs, and the brain's job is to explain those outputs, so when the face heats and reddens, your brain doesn't experience that as vascular dilation, it experiences it as meaning. It builds the fastest explanation that fits the data. I'm exposed, I'm being watched. My control slipped. That explanation becomes the subjective feeling. Embarrassment is the story the brain uses to make sense of the body state, which means the feeling isn't driving the physiology. The feeling is tracking it. The label comes after the data, and that's why it can feel like embarrassment arrives out of nowhere, because the early part of the process never enters awareness. You only notice it when the output is already visible and the system has already committed. Now, you might think, okay, fine, so the body starts it, but I can still stop it once I notice it. But wait, why does trying to stop it usually fail? Why does the thought, don't blush, often make the blush stronger? Because noticing triggers monitoring, and monitoring is itself a social signal. The moment you become aware of being seen, you start simulating what you look like. You watch your face from the outside. You track your voice. You predict what they're thinking. That internal surveillance adds a second exposure. They're not just watching the mistake, they're watching the reaction. The system detects that escalation, and it pushes harder, more arousal, more heat dump, more surface change. The loop tightens because the circuit runs without permission. Now, look at the route that command travels. The autonomic system isn't one dial, it's two opposing control strategies running in parallel. One strategy ramps you up. It increases readiness. It shifts resources toward action. The other strategy restores baseline. It supports recovery. It keeps the system stable over time. Those two strategies are always negotiating, every second. And blushing sits in a strange position because a classic ramp-up state usually pulls blood away from the surface. It keeps blood deeper, it conserves heat, it prioritizes muscle and core organs. That's why intense stress can make people look pale. But embarrassment doesn't just ramp you up, it ramps you up while turning the display on. So you get a hybrid output, internal mobilization, plus external visibility, and that hybrid output explains the sensation. You feel energized and exposed at the same time. Your body is preparing, but the preparation is being advertised. Now compare that to ordinary flushing. Go for a hard run. Your heart output rises. Heat production rises. The body has to dump warmth. So vessels open broadly to cool you. The redness is heat management, a physical cooling strategy. A blush is different. It's narrower, more face forward, often sudden, triggered by attention, not by heat. Same plumbing, different command. The system is borrowing a mechanism built for temperature regulation and using it as social signaling. That's why it feels uncanny, because a tool designed for physics is being used for reputation. And it also explains why you can't override it. The circuit isn't asking what you prefer, it's solving for consequence. If a visible acknowledgement reduces escalation, the circuit will keep the display running until the room stabilizes. It doesn't have to feel good, it just has to work. Now, Let's pin this down with numbers. Proof one is latency. Within about 200 to 500 milliseconds, autonomic signals can change. That's half a second, sometimes less. Before you can craft a sentence, before you can plan an excuse, before you can decide what expression to wear, the body is already moving. In some experiments, cameras can detect the blush before people report feeling it. Color changes and heat shifts show up on sensors first, and the subjective report follows after. Because sensors don't need a narrative, they just register the output. Your body is measurable, your awareness is interpretive. Proof two is measurable blushing. Blushing isn't just you feel hot, it's not metaphor. In thermal camera measurements, facial skin temperature can rise by about 1 to 2 degrees Celsius during a blush. That's a physical heat event. You can see it with the right camera even before it becomes obvious by eye. And proof three, because it's particularly revealing, is sweat. Skin conductance can rise within about a second during social exposure. That means sweat glands are being activated fast, even if you don't feel sweaty, because the body isn't waiting for your opinion, it's preparing. So when you say, I'm embarrassed, you're not describing a thought, you're describing a state shift. Bring it together. A social cue lands. The predicted world and the received world don't match. Within half a second, autonomic signals begin shifting. Within seconds, facial vessels dilate. Blood moves toward the surface. Temperature rises. Color changes. The room can see it. And then awareness arrives. Not first, last. The story shows up late to explain what the body already did. So what's between embarrassment and blushing? A command. A vascular command issued by an autonomic circuit. Built to detect social exposure, built to manage consequence. Built to broadcast acknowledgement, a mechanism that runs before your narrative self can speak. And here's the most unsettling part, this happens before you can stop it. You can notice it, but noticing is late, awareness comes last, and notice the logic of that credibility. The signal has value because you control. If you could choose it, it would become strategy. If it could be switched on and off like a smile, it would lose meaning. So the nervous system keeps it in the involuntary layer. Not because it's poetic, because systems that leak state are harder to game. That's what you feel as humiliation. A private regulator becoming public output. A circuit announcing something your words didn't plan to announce. Not comfort, truth. And once you see that, the next question is inevitable. Why do some people flush at the smallest exposure and others barely change at all? What exactly is the system measuring when it decides to light up your face? That's another mechanism, another circuit, another proof that what you call emotion was never abstract to begin with.